Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we are recording from home tonight because, we had...
Snowmageddon.
Snowmageddon, yeah. We have about a foot of snow out there and we don't feel like going to the studio.
No.
So if you hear noise in the background, either trucks or animals or whatever, that is what is going on. Because I'm waiting for people to be like, your audio quality is not usually as good as it usually is.
No, that's because we're at home and it's echoey.
So we're gonna talk about the cancellation of Joss Whedon. This is an absolute disaster. This guy has been completely destroyed.
Well, he wouldn't stay down.
He wouldn't stay, but they're just, this is crazy. We're gonna talk about some of the harsh words he had for Ray Fisher and Gal Gadot, and then we've got this hit piece on Vulture talking about all the women he's slept with, and basically they want this guy to go crawl in a hole and die.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about this. Everybody's talking about it. I mean, he went from being like the pop culture guy to being, not.
Yeah.
Not. So before we get into that any further, I just want to tell you guys we do have Bubbly Steve.
We do.
Yeah, he's in stock at shopclownfish.com. We have less than 100 of these guys left after fulfillment. If you missed out last year, you can get him. He's actually pretty big. He's like 15
He is
inches.
actually really big. A lot bigger than I thought he'd be.
Steve is 15 inches of fun.
That's right.
So this is official Clownfish merch. Look at that. Anyway, I will put a link to that in the comments below. So let's talk about this. The undoing of Joss Whedon. So this article kind of opened up this huge can of worms, and many other media outlets were dissecting this freaking novella.
Was this where it came from? Was this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're like, they kind of talk about all the allegations. They talk about the Ray Fisher thing. They talk about Gal Gadot, and we're not going to read this entire article, obviously, because it is very long. There are some kernels in here though that are getting a lot of mileage. One is he swung back at Ray Fisher. He said that Ray Fisher played Cyborg in Justice League, infamously, and he went after Warner Brothers, went after Joss Whedon, went after Jeff Johns. We'll talk a little more about Jeff Johns here.
This all had come out, like they all said this stuff about him a while ago, and he hadn't said anything really. Right, so this is him coming out.
This is Joss Whedon.
So he must feel pretty secure where he's at, or he wouldn't be.
Yeah, he's kind of crawling out of his wherever man place.
I think he'd keep his mouth shut unless he thought that he was in a position where he can say something.
So what's interesting about this is the same time that Joss Whedon is coming out and doing this ridiculously long interview, and he actually puts his foot in his mouth, several times in this interview, but the same time he's coming back. So is Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns was also name checked in the Ray Fisher debacle. And he hadn't written anything for DC Comics for like 2 or 3 years, and he's coming back now. And now apparently Twitter is threatening to boycott Batman, boycott Warner Brothers over this. So it seems like the guys that were supposed to get canceled didn't get canceled, but Vulture, man, they are definitely living up to their name. They are absolutely tearing this guy down, everything he says. But yeah, he said Ray Fisher is just a bad actor. He said he's a bad actor all the way around.
Well, here's the thing. I look at it this way. One, we don't know what happened. We weren't there.
Yeah.
It's all another one of those they said, he said, she said, they said, whatever. But what I found interesting was there was definitely the Snyder cut, and then with Ray Fisher, Cyborg and stuff in it, was a exceptionally better movie than the original.
Yeah. Now his argument, I guess, is that when he came in, of course, he took over for Zack Snyder, due to the unfortunate death of Zack Snyder's daughter. He came in to finish the movie, tinker with the movie, and he pretty much cut out the entire Cyborg subplot. Mm-hmm. And, it made it kind of hokey, made it kind of goofy. But he said his reasoning for that is that Ray Fisher was not a good actor. And he actually called him a malevolent force, that he was basically out to cause trouble. And he's like, look, Cyborg didn't work. That's why we cut it. And like you said, though, you see the Snyder cut and you're like, actually, Cyborg did work, but there's no way they would have had a 4.5 hour theatrical cut.
Right, exactly. So it's a case of, they said, this person said this person said that. Now, what I did find interesting was his comments about Gal Gadot.
Yeah,
that one. I mean, I was like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah, so that was another thing that Gal Gadot said that she was threatened by Joss Whedon. So, when these allegations started coming out,
several people came out saying stuff. It wasn't just him.
No, and Gal Gadot backed him up and said, yeah, he was kind of abusive on set. And again, he kind of dug himself a deeper hole here because he's like, well, English isn't her first language.
Yeah, he said that. Well, I'm flowery with my words, and she probably didn't understand what I was trying to say, because why would someone say those things? And she's like, I understood it, and no one should be talked to like that, so I took it up with people above him.
English is not her first language. I'm like, she's
surprised they didn't say, if she's a woman, she can't hear past her tits.
Her tits were blocking her.
I mean, because that's all women are, right?
So what's interesting about this, especially with Gal Gadot, now there's been a lot of talk about Ray Fisher too, but look, this is how they lead on Vulture. They're like, the undoing of Joss Whedon, the Buffy creator, once an icon of Hollywood feminism, is now an outcast accused of misogyny. How did he get there? And they talk about, in this article, it's pretty damning. They talk about the fact that, for all his talk of respecting women, of listening to women, they said he's kind of like a villain in one of his shows or
didn't
movies.
People from even like Buffy and that come out and say that, yeah, he was doing shit then? I mean, again, but sometimes there's smoke, there's fire, everybody comes out to accuse people. It doesn't necessarily mean it happened. I don't know. It just seems like there's an awful lot of evidence stacked against him. So
we'll go with, let's see, Rolling Stone here. Joss Whedon denies threatening Gal Gadot, says English is not her first language.
I can't believe you said that.
She says, God. I understood perfectly.
Oh my God.
Joss Whedon addressed allegations of misconduct made against him in a new interview in New York magazine Vulture. I can't keep track of who owns what now. Whedon, who has been accused of misconduct on multiple film and TV sets, including Justice League, denied the allegations. In response to a claim made by Wonder Woman actress Gal Gadot that Whedon threatened her career during the production of Justice League, Whedon replied that the issue was her grasp of the English language.
Have you heard her speak? She's very articulate. I can't think she doesn't understand.
She's very articulate. Yeah. I don't threaten people. Who does that? He added, English is not her first language, and I tend to be annoyingly flowery in my speech.
How can you... Okay, wait. How do you misconstrue, I'm going to end your career with a flowery speech? I mean, how do you misconstrue that?
I guess I was speaking above her comprehension level. Mm-hmm. Apparently the concern arose when Whedon and Gadot argued over a scene she wanted cut from the film. The director then jokingly said if she wanted to get rid of it, she would have to tie him to a railroad track and do it over his dead body. Then I was told that I had said something about her dead body and tying her to the railroad track. Gadot, responding to the interview in an email, replied, I understood perfectly. Ouch. In another instance, Ray Fisher alleged that Whedon's behavior during the making of Justice League was gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. In his interview with New York, Whedon denied all of Fisher's allegations, including that Whedon had lightened the actor's skin tone. The director claimed Fisher... I
hadn't heard that one.
That is the first time I'd heard that one, yeah. The director claimed Fisher was simply trying to damage his reputation. We're talking about a malevolent force, he said. We're talking about a bad actor in both senses. So he's talking about, some of the Buffy cast have come out. I think Sarah Michelle Gellar even kind of threw her under the bus, too.
Yeah, well, she also ruined He-Man, so...
Let's see. This is Michelle Trachtenberg. I yelled. Sometimes you had to yell. This is a very young cast, and it was easy for everything to turn to a cocktail party. He added, most of my experiences with Charisma, that was Charisma Carpenter, who was one of the first ones to come out, were delightful and charming. She struggled sometimes with her lines, but nobody could hit a punch line harder than her. I did not call her fat. Of course I didn't.
Now, again, I mean, he's got some of his explanations make sense, too, though. So, it's a case of, like, we weren't there, so we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're just going to say that, like, There's being canceled, and then there's like getting extra canceled.
This
like,
is extra canceled.
This is extra canceled because it doesn't help his case that he's currently seeking treatment for sex and love addiction.
Oh,
Along with other addictive tendencies, according to the interview.
sex and love addiction.
We're going to talk about that.
We are?
Apparently, he's bedded quite a few ladies.
Didn't David Duchovny have problems like a sex addiction too, or something? He said.
I don't know. I've never slept with David Duchovny.
I have not either.
He's never propositioned me. He was at a convention I did one time, and he looked like shit. He looked really bad. He looked like he was like, he just crawled out of like the Unabomber shack or something.
He's never propositioned me either.
I'm glad, because we might have to have a talk. The director and showrunner used the feature as an opportunity to reflect on his choices and public perception, concluding that people have used every weaponizable word of the modern era to make it seem like I was an abusive monster. I think I'm one of the nicer showrunners that's ever been.
Well, no one ever sees themselves a villain. But, here's the thing that gets me. It's so hard to tell, if we're going to be fair, because we've seen people go out there and make a marked effort to cancel somebody. And it turned out, like for example, Rosario Dawson. They were going after her like crazy because somebody said that, that she was anti-trans and all this other stuff. And then it turned out that the court case that was dismissed against her and her family because the person that was making the accusations didn't do what they were supposed to do and didn't provide proof and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm like, and everybody was convinced that, she did these horrible things. So you never know. I mean, sometimes I think the truth lies in the middle most often.
Yeah. So this is interesting because I hadn't heard this. The guy is basically nailing every one that wasn't.
Why? Well, I mean, on the end of the person, why would you sleep with him?
Look at this face.
Why? Again, why?
Isn't this the sexiest face you've ever seen?
No.
Why wouldn't anyone want to sleep with this guy?
I wouldn't.
Anyway, so he goes on to detail his many affairs. Get this. I'm pressed on why he had all these affairs and why he slept with all these women. It messes up the power dynamic. He didn't expand on the thought. Instead, he quickly added that he had felt he had to sleep with them, that he was powerless to resist. I laughed. This is
wait, he's turning around on them.
Yeah.
I had all this misconduct things because I wouldn't stop sleeping with people and but it's because I was powerless against them and their enticements.
The power of pussy compelled me.
I guess.
We're going to talk more about pussy in DC later. That's a whole nother thing. Apparently, you're not allowed to call Batman a pussy. Anyway, the reporter laughed. I'm not actually joking, he said. He'd been surrounded by beautiful young women, the sort of women who had ignored him when he was younger. Can't imagine why. And he feared if he didn't have sex with them, he would always regret it.
Dude, stop talking!
Looking back, he feels shame and horror. I thought of something he had told me earlier. Vampire, he'd said, is the exalted outsider, a creature that feels like less than everybody else and also kind of more than everybody else.
Well, I think you're still stuck on the more than everybody else, because basically you keep putting yourself as this, like, you're trying to justify it, and you're putting yourself like, I am the outsider vampire, I'm the sparkly vampire all the women wanted, and what am I supposed to do, tell them no? I'm doing them a public service.
What am I supposed to do? Yeah, Buffy ended in 2003. His affairs did not. He slept with employees, fans, and colleagues. Yeah. Eventually, his wife found out. In 2012, they split up. In Cole's open letter to his fans, she accused him of using... This is interesting. In Cole's open letter to fans...
Yeah, I remember that. She said this before.
She accused him of using feminism as a cover for his infidelity.
And I would, if all this is true, then I would agree with her.
He always had a lot of female friends, but he told me it was because his mother raised him as a feminist, so he just liked women better. After learning he had been deceiving her for 15 years, she was diagnosed with complex PTSD, the same condition as him. I want the people who worship him to know he's human.
So wait, so basically it's he got so used to everybody telling him how great he was that he just thought he was that great. And now obviously the only solution for her now is to go do the world a favor and sleep with all the guys that want to sleep with her because they clearly, they're throwing themselves at her because she's that important.
Yeah, apparently. So here he's like, holy shit. So he hooked up with a 22-year-old when he was directing Age of Ultron. Wow. He was 49. She was 23. Whedon texted her with an unusual request. Would she come over to his house for the weekend and watch him write for $2,500? Watch him write. for $2,500.
Uh-huh.
No, 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 no. And of course, it went the way you thought it would go. So here's the thing. Again, I'm assuming that he's confessing to all this shit, right? I think, like you were saying, it's hard to tell what the truth is because we weren't there. It sounds like we just had a bunch of horrible people.
Well, it sounds like he views everybody as there to service him in some way or another. I mean, in some way or another. Orally,
anally.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of puffery to me and a lot of. I can't. I'm trying to think how to word this.
Somebody go fluff Joss.
He's
got writer's block. We need to unblock him.
He was so far up his own ass, he needs somebody else to get him out.
He was so far up somebody else's ass too, apparently, for $2,500. Yeah. So here's the thing. This is important because there are all these people. We talk about this all the time. All these people putting on a show of how virtuous they are,
how pious they are,
constantly virtue signaling, especially in Hollywood. The more virtuous a celebrity pretends to be, the more skeletons they probably have in their closet. Mm-hmm. And this is anybody, really. I mean, this is, this even goes back to, Christians going to church. They go out there, look how pious I am and how wonderful I am. And
I just try to wrap my head around the whole idea that he was like, they ignored me in high school. So, but now they're throwing themselves at me. So obviously I had to screw them. I was doing him a service,
I just had to. I just had to pay her $2,500 to come over to watch me, quote unquote, write. What I wasn't going to tell her is I was going to be writing in the nude and I was going to be writing dirty stories about her.
And it's just like, I can't wrap my head around this, because they didn't pay attention to me in school, that somehow, now that they're throwing themselves at me, probably because they're thinking they're going to get a job or something, which I think is just absolute trash. If you're,
they're getting a job.
Well, girl, for men or women, if you're just like throwing yourselves at somebody because you think if you screw them that they're going to give you some kind of job, that's just disgusting and nasty. But I'm just like, so you basically have low self-esteem and they're trying to get ahead, and you cashed in on that.
And he's trying to get head too. Yeah, he's trying to get head too. So he is like, this interview was supposed to be damage control. It actually, I think, makes him look worse.
Look, I'm sympathetic. I was really arrogant, and I thought that I owed it to these women to sleep with them. And it's like, dude, stop talking.
Yeah,
stay down.
Stay down. Yeah. So anyway, also in this, let's see here. Yeah, in this situation, Jeff Johns back in DC. DC fans are threatening to boycott Warner Brothers. Now, what was really freaking funny was that Batman doesn't eat pussy.
Remember, they couldn't do that in the comic because...
Yeah, he doesn't eat pussy. He also cannot be called a pussy, apparently.
So Batman cannot be associated with pussy in any way.
No, Batman cannot be associated with pussy in any way. How long until Batman is bi and Batman and Robin is going to be Batman in Robin? I'm just saying, the way the DC's going, So this was interesting. This is actually, speaking of canceled people, James Gunn, who was kind of canceled, they kind of wasn't canceled. He had a line in Peacemaker. They tried to call Batman a pussy, and DC wouldn't have it. Like, Batman can do all this other shit. DC Comics can do all this other crazy shit, but you're not allowed to call Batman a pussy.
No.
I thought that was...
You're allowed to convert any male character to a pussy. That's completely fine, but he's not allowed to be a pussy.
Yeah, so Peacemaker, John Cena again, which obviously is a prequel if you saw the Suicide Squad, which I did like the Suicide Squad. I might actually check this out. Trades barbs with his father's next-door neighbor, who claims that Peacemaker ain't no hero if he kills people, unlike Batman. Peacemaker stops in his tracks, spins around, and snaps, contending that Batman never crossed the line because he's a pussy. He then launches into a detailed argument to support that point of view. James Gunn told The Hollywood Reporter this week that putting Batman on blast like that almost didn't fly at DC.
So he still got to say it?
Yeah, he got to say it, but they had a problem with it.
It makes sense for the character, though. It totally makes sense for the character to say that.
Yeah, I was very surprised because they were not too fond of Peacemaker calling Batman a pussy. I'm like, but he talks about all these other terrible things, about all these other superheroes that are much worse than calling Batman a pussy. Not only that, Batman is the only one that makes a fair point about, Everybody else, he's really just believing stuff he read on the internet. everything that he believes is kind of nonsense, and Batman's the only one he has a point of view on that makes any sense.
That's why they don't want you to do it. Because the other ones are so far out there, it was clearly a joke. But that one, people might be like, well, you're not wrong there.
In the end, the DC overlords were great, Gunn said. They let me get away with what I got away with. But yeah, he said he was surprised that of all the stuff.
But you're not allowed to. He's not allowed to eat pussy. So
he's not allowed to eat pussy. He's not allowed to be called a pussy.
I feel so crass. I literally feel crass when I say that.
We're talking about Catwoman. Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about pussies in DC comic drama. So there we go, guys. Joss Whedon. Everybody, right. Joss Whedon, there it is. Make up your own mind.
Yeah, decide what, look at what he said and decide, but dude should have stopped talking.
Dude should stop talking.
I mean, he has some arguments that, okay, well, maybe that might be true, but we weren't there. And I do know that some people are going out of their way to cause, drama, and if somebody says one thing wrong, the internet descends upon them whether they're guilty or not. I get that. But then you read the rest of what he said, and it's like, oh, God, dude.
Yeah.
You're not helping your case at all.
It's like you are infinitely worse than I thought you were. Hey. Anyway, Hollywood feminism. There we go, guys. That's what it actually looks like. I'm going to wrap it up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we'll talk later.
Bye.